Hi everyone, you are listening to YachtFemme on Yachting International Radio, where we discuss women in yachting. Welcome to YachtFemme, where we talk about the women that make the yachting industry. I'm your host, Andrea Tagliaferro. Learn who they are, how they got into yachting, and what they do today.
Meet Kelly Gordon, a Superyacht captain and former chemistry professor. Kelly works for two seasonal boats based in Chicago but started far from the water. She grew up on a small farm in Indiana. In 2004, she gained her master's degree in chemistry and began teaching in the university. In 2007, she attended a wedding on board a yacht and made a life decision to become a yacht captain. Kelly holds a 500-ton license. She has managed new builds and a few refit projects.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me again at YachtFemme. I'm joined today with Captain Kelly Gordon. She has a very interesting story about how she found the yachting industry. You'll understand why later. And also just note that being a female captain is very rare in our industry. So we are super excited to know how she got there, what does she do right now, and some advice that she can give us from her experience. Hi Kelly, how are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm great. I'm so happy to be here and share my story with you. I'm so excited. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you. And shout out to our friend Alex for introducing us.
Oh, Alex, the yacht guy. If it hadn't been for him and he told me I love you, and by golly, he was right. I definitely do. You're awesome. And yes, definitely thanks to Alex for putting us together.
No, well, thank you. That's networking on social media for sure. Kelly, before we dive in, I would love for you to share some background with us. Can you tell us who you are, where are you from, and what do you do in yachting? And please tell us, like, did you go to school, did you not go to school, and how, that all comes together.
Okay, so, well, you've already introduced me, but I'll say it again. I'm Kelly Gordon, and I hold a USCG 500 gross ton captain's license, and I grew up on a small farm in central Indiana. And right now I'm running motor yachts from the Great Lakes to the inland rivers, down and around to South Florida and the Bahamas, and wherever it takes me, I'm going. And doing a little bit of freelance work right now, so we're all over the place. A little bit more about me. What did I do when I was in Indiana besides work on the farm? I had always wanted to be a veterinarian since I was a little kid. So I pursued my bachelor's degree in chemistry, got into vet school, didn't go. And so then I said, well, now what? So it only made complete sense for me to get my master's degree in chemistry. And I did that at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, which is where I found yachting. And how I got into yachting it was through a non-traditional student of mine when I was working as a chemistry professor that invited me to like a wedding reception on a motor yacht, and it just took off from
there. How long was it that you found the yachting industry, and what do you do right now? You say you're a captain. Are you an active captain? Just tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, I currently I am a captain, and I'm right in the middle of delivery of moving a motor yacht down all the way from Chicago over down and around to Fort Lauderdale. So that where we are right now is the boats in Orange Beach, Alabama, and we're waiting on good weather to get across the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm actively on a boat now. So here pretty soon I'll be across the Gulf and down around the Keys and back up to Fort Lauderdale. So
for the people that don't know what a captain actually does, a lot of people think, well, you drive the vessel. Okay, there's a lot more on your daily task that encompasses than not only navigating the yacht. So can you tell us a day on the yacht, for example, when you are cruising with guests? What does a day like that look like?
Okay, so that day typically starts very early. So the boat will definitely get washed and detailed inside and out, and that starts way before. Let's just use when I was on the charter boat, for example, and especially if we had back-to-back charters and you've only got a 24-hour turnaround at best. So the crew's scurrying on the outside to get her washed and detailed and all shiny, and doing the same thing on the inside, getting the inside all cleaned up and ready to go, while the chef's probably off to the local grocery provisioning and getting ready there. And myself, if I have an engineer or if I don't have an engineer, I'm always very closely involved with the engineering and the maintenance of the boat. So if there was anything that broke or anything that needed fixed or repaired while we were on our previous trip, we're obviously working diligently to get that done.
What gave you the knowledge and the tools to understand the machinery of yachts?
My farming background has been instrumental. And that was one of the first things that I noticed. The first time I ever stepped on a motor yacht, I was like, well, where's the engine room? I wanted to see that more than I wanted to see the staterooms and the pretty fluffy stuff. And I noticed right away, the engines are tractor engines, and the gauges that are doing all of the engine monitoring, those are tractor engines. And it's just, I was like, oh my gosh, look at the parallel here. And it just kind of blew me away.
Well, you did say that after you saw pretty much how the yacht worked, you said, I can do this. I can navigate this vessel. And this was her first time stepping on board of a yacht. So what made you so confident, or what happened after you said that boldly to the captain?
When I saw that opportunity to learn something new, it was, a characteristic of me to say, well, I can do this. Well, I didn't think that the captain was going to call my bluff, and he did. And he looks at me and he's like, you think so? And I'm like, uh-oh. And so he says, we'll come back tomorrow when we don't have anybody on board. Well, I had to, because I already opened my mouth, and I went back and
did you look something up online, or did you just like, okay, here we go, let's go?
I was like, I can't Google anything, I can't YouTube anything, I can't do anything at this point, because Andrea, I knew zero about boats. I didn't know bow from stern, port from starboard. I knew nothing. And so it was, I was just like, oh, I just got to show up. And so I did, and he took me out into the turning basin. So that's an area where big ships come in. There's nothing for me to run into, plenty deep water. And we were up on the fly bridge, and he was going to walk away from the helm. The boat was just sitting idle, and I was like, well, where are you going? And he's like, well, you told me you knew what you were doing. He was kind of calling my bluff. And just from there, I think going back and talking with him, because he's my mentor, and maybe I'll have the opportunity to get into how important that is to have one. I think he just saw in me my drive and my curiosity, and my willingness. So, and he just took me under his wing, and he's taught me everything I know.
So you weren't really going to the wedding, to this party to start your yachting career. What were you doing at the moment, and did you just change your life course after you got on the boat? So what were you doing then, and what happened professionally after you someone called your bluff?
I just said right then, I was like, I want to do this. And how it worked for a couple of years was that the college that I taught at was right there on the coast. And keep in mind, I have a lot of breaks, and I don't work the summers. So it was really nice for me to double dip for a little while. I was teaching and learning all things yachting all at the same time. So, but then it got to the point where I had to choose, and I couldn't stay. Fortunately, the college that I worked for, they gave me a couple sabbaticals. They let me go fully online for a few semesters, so I was able to do a lot of traveling with that boat. But the time came that I started growing, and I needed to spread my wings, and I needed to go, and I wanted to go. So, so I did. Here I am.
You mentioned to me that this mentor told you how important it is to know the fundamentals, understand the positions and all the roles that it takes to operate a yacht. So what does that mean? What kind of roles were you taking on while on board the yacht?
One of probably the most important ones that he made me undertake was knowing my way around the engine room. I don't need to be able to tear down and rebuild an engine. I'm not an engineer, but what he wanted me to understand was just how important it was for me to know basic plumbing, basic wiring, basic maintenance and care of the engines, day-to-day stuff. Because there's going to be times that you will be on a boat that has an engineer, and there's going to be times that you are the engineer. A lot of times when you see jobs advertised, they're captain/engineer. They want somebody that has that ability. And they don't mean, again, they don't mean that you need to be able to rebuild the engine, but they need to know that you can do some basic troubleshooting and repairing and some maintenance and that kind of thing. So I spent a lot of time learning about everything under the floorboards and in the engine room, and in the overheads, you know, all the stuff you don't see. I spent a lot of time with him learning about that. And then I also wanted to know the interior as well. And that kind of, he wasn't so much of an interior guy. That really just came from my own, the way I am, the way that I have always liked to lead is I like to know a little bit about everybody's department on the boat so that I know what they're going through, or if they're stressed, or if they're running behind or something like that. And I can support them. I know enough to be able to jump in where I'm needed to jump in. I'm very hands-on. I don't like to just sit at the helm and drive.
You keep mentioning this mentor. Apparently he was extremely instrumental in your current career. And I also know from a lot of people that not only a captain, but an owner of a yacht can make or break your career. So how has it been to not only work with your mentor, but also with the yacht owner?
You're right. An owner can make or break your career. You're very right. Having a mentor, and I'm glad you asked, is instrumental. You know, I think first and foremost, we have to be our biggest cheerleader. But then you also need someone on the outside, because you need someone for maybe when an owner's being difficult, or maybe when you're just having a hard time with, maybe you're in the yard and having a hard time in the yard with the yard project, or maybe you've run into difficult charter clients or something like that. You need an outside cheerleader for the days that you can't be your own cheerleader. And for me, that cheerleader is a mentor. And I just think that that's so important to have, because it can be a tough relationship.
Yeah, going into that, is there something or like misconceptions people have about what it is to be a captain of a yacht that you have run across people and you keep correcting them like, nah, that's not really how that works, or something like that?
I don't think people realize how many different directions a captain gets pulled.
What are those directions?
So, and this is, for example, I'll just go with the new build. A lot of people think that a new build is like a brand new car and it just rolls off the parking lot ready to go. And it doesn't. There's a lot of fine tuning that has to be made. For example, we had some aftermarket kind of things that we wanted to add to the boat. So I had to manage that and be very involved with those guys. One, just giving them input as to maybe where I would, the camera system, for example, where I wanted the cameras, or then it was, you know, they had to spend time with me on how that system works. But then while I'm working with that guy, the vendor for an exterior project that I have going on, he's calling me. And then, well, a few minutes later, you know, the engineer's down in the engine room and he finds something that's not working right. So I'm pulled in so many different directions. And my mate and I were talking about that the other day, and she's like, you can't get anything done. And I said, you know, sometimes I feel like just about 10% of my job is driving the boat. The other 90% is management and maintenance and providing crew direction for what they need to do to get done, and being there for the vendors when they have questions for me, and then managing and overseeing that work to make sure that it gets done like I want it done. So I'm going back to your zigzag comment, I'm zigzagging all day long.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that once you get to that position of being the captain, that's it. The only thing you do is drive the vessel, drive the yacht. and liaison between what it is the crew and the owners or the client's desires. There's a lot of management. I've heard that from many captains that the amount of managing is what takes up most of their time, and getting the right crew it's so important because we live and breathe with each other. And if those relationships actually don't match up, skills I can teach you, but being able to link their personality so everybody works as a team seems to be what takes up more of their day than they would expect. So let's go back to your career. How long, what is the number? How long have you been now in the yachting industry?
Almost 12 years.
Almost 12 years. So I'm sure in those 12 years, you have been able to see a lot of changes in the industry, or maybe not. And that goes into my question. What changes have you seen, if you have seen any?
I'm starting to see more girls on deck, and I like that. I think one of my goals personally is to inspire, support, encourage as many young women as I can to get out on the deck. I've seen more women starting to pop up on the deck. Still not enough. Still needs to be a lot more, because every time I walk out of the boat, every single time I'm asked, can I speak to the captain? And I'm like, well, you're looking at her. So it's not become commonplace yet for women in this industry, but it's growing, and changes are being made. And people like yourself are trying to be instrumental in that change and that growth.
When I started yachting, first of all, I had no idea that it was a male-dominated industry, that there were certain roles that were traditionally occupied by men, like the captain role. Almost every position on the yacht, there was an exterior position and an interior one. Because the first one that I was on, she was a first mate, but chief stew, because it was only a 70-footer. It was only the captain and her. So she had to do everything the exterior and everything the interior. And I popped in to help out with the interior for some specific events. Either way, long story is that he said, even though I wasn't even digging for this information, he preferred to hire female first mates versus men. And my question, of course, was why? And he said the majority of the men, when I get them and I ask them to do a specific task on the boat, they're okay, done. And they just lift up whatever they have to lift up and just charge on. Every time I have a woman, because she doesn't have the ability to just log something on their shoulder and go forward, they have to actually think of a strategic plan and think out how can they actually do this. So chances are, and he says, on my bottom line, I prefer a female because they damage the yacht less.
But I've worked for owners that have said they'll only hire female captains. And I thought for a minute, I'm cautious, I'm aware, and I'm like, okay,
give me more.
Yeah. And I would, so of course I immediately asked, and I'm like, well, why? And one of them said they work harder, they pay better attention to detail, their leadership skills sometimes are a little softer and maybe a little bit better for, I don't know, kind of mothering the crew when you've got all these young crew that are away from home.
Which you actually did recently. So
yes, exactly. And and then another guy, he said there's no ego issues, there's no ego measuring going
on. If you go back not only to your first day, maybe your first week or something, that you said, oh my God, if someone had told me this advice, I could have taken my career to another point faster or something. Is there some advice you can give someone else who's starting their yachting career now?
Oh, yeah. Don't work in just one department. It seems like I've zigzagged, and I'm glad I've zigzagged. The only department I haven't zigzagged into is the galley, and you just don't want me to zigzag into the galley because I don't have any ability. But I think when a person decides that they're going to get into yachting, somebody gets a hold of them or somebody influences them. Oh, you'd be good on the interior. Oh, you'd be good on the deck. And they jump into that role and they've never explored anything else. So yeah, women get pigeonholed into the interior. Men you typically see outside on the exterior on the deck. Try some other positions, because you might not know that, let's say you are a woman working the interior and you ask, the captain for some time on deck. You might find that you really excel out there, and you might find that that's actually where you really want to be.
Actually, even how you described that you got on the boat, at the moment you got on board this wedding party on a yacht, you said, how can I help?
Yeah, and you're right. It seems like you're always chasing the clock. You're always running behind. And somebody in another department on that boat is going to need some help.
Well, sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, all your knowledge with us today, and just taking the time to talk.
Well, thank you. No, thanks for having me, and thanks for providing me with this platform. And again, thanks to our buddy Alex, the yacht guy, for putting this together. He told me I'd love you, and he was so right.
I told her that's a biased comment because he's a friend, but I'm happy I lived up to the expectation. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to YachtFemme. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and comment. Your comment will help us reach a broader audience. And don't miss the next episode. Bye!